In this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 biggest eating habits that are stopping you from losing weight and staying in shape for life. But before you do that, like, subscribe and comment on the video. Any tips, any tricks that you want me to cover in any YouTube videos, pop them in the link below and we'll be able to have a chat about that. So the first eating habit that we need to discuss is going to be finishing your plate of food. And I know, you've been hearing it for years. Your mum and your dad didn't let you leave the table until you ate your full plate of food so that you could get dessert. And that's where it all comes from, childhood. And the feeling that you need to finish that plate to be able to get that dessert or to be able to get that next thing because your parents have told you openly. It's one of the biggest factors that come into people not being able to eat out socially, not being able to eat other people's foods, or be able to go to anywhere and eat in moderate portion because they've been told that they need to finish the plate. If you eat someone's plate of food that you don't know how many calories are in, if you go to a restaurant, they're not making portion sizes for you. They're making portion sizes for every other person in the restaurant to give them the best experience. If there's people in the restaurant that are 100 kilos or 60 kilos, that portion will stay the same, but it's about how you eat what you need to on that plate to get what you should from your diet, from the fat loss that you want, or from the maintenance side of things. Even if you just look at calories on menus, you'll be quite surprised on how many calories are going to be in food. Within the research, it really shows that 80% of all restaurants' main meals are over 1,200 calories, which is alarmingly large. If you eat a large main meal, but then you have a starter and a dessert with it, you're talking 2,500 to 3,000 calories, excluding any alcohol, which then comes at the question of, okay, why are we eating that full plate of food? Because we can definitely be hungry off less food, but why are we forced to finish that plate? And it all comes down to that childhood response of having to eat the food, but also as humans, we like to get our money's worth. And they're 2 big eating habits that we need to remove, just because if you don't have them, you won't finish the plate just because it's there, or you won't see value for money in getting every last drop off that plate, which essentially is going to be calories on a plate. So removing that and changing it to something like, I eat until I'm full and I enjoy my experience until I'm satiated. And when we look at what satiation is, it's our belly telling us that we're not hungry anymore. Often the statement, eyes bigger than the belly, is something that we come across very often. But ultimately, if you're always eating with your eyes, if you're always eating that full plate of food, or you're always eating whatever's been given to you to the best of your degree, you're eating calories that you don't essentially need. We should be listening to our body, and if we're hungry, we eat. If we're not hungry and we're satiated, we don't need to finish that plate. It's one of the biggest things that you'll see people in shape do. They will finish a meal when they're full, as opposed to when the plate is finished. So that's tip number 1. Now, before I go into tip number 2, drop me a like on Instagram, Nathan.autonomy. We've got plenty more tips on there, anything from getting in shape, staying in shape for life. You've got all of our podcasts as well to listen to on YouTube. There's so much information and education for you to go and look at when it comes to our business. If you need any help, any tips or tricks or specific guidance, we're there for you on Instagram, Nathan.autonomy. Check me out on that side of things. Tip number 2 is, I'm a foodie, or I love food. It's a big common thing that we get within our coaching, is that I just love food too much to give it up. We have to separate things when it comes to I'm a foodie. You've got the people that are a foodie when you look at Michelin-starred restaurants and the people that go to restaurants to eat and taste specific flavors. But one thing you'll notice within Michelin-starred restaurants is the portions are very small. And then you've got the people that say they're a foodie, but they eat high quantities, high volume, and they eat as much food that's on the table as possible and call themselves a foodie. Now, there's a large discrepancy between the two. You've got foodies who will taste 3 bites of things, 4 bites of things, and be able to taste the flavors and get the sensations and the crunch and the texture and the sweet and the salt. They're what you deem normally as a food critic and someone that is very critical of food because of the taste. Whereas you're on this side of things, people say that they're foodies or they love food, but actually what they do love is they love the quantity of food. They love being stuffed. They love having all of the food and feeling that pressure within their stomach to say that they're over full. Now, those people that are foodies will take great enjoyment from any calories. You could give them 1,500 calories, you could give them 1,000 calories, you can give them 2,000 calories, and they will enjoy the food within that 2,000 calories. However, the people that are foodies but are essentially just stuffing themselves full of high quantity of foods and get enjoyment from that, they're obviously going significantly over their calories all of the time to chase a feeling, which can then mean that one social event could be 3,500, 5,000 calories, and then therefore their week has gone in terms of fat loss, or their ability to maintain that body weight that they want to has gone completely because they're trying to chase a feeling that ultimately leads to excessive calories. So what we have to do is really dissect if people just want to be stuffed, or they want to kind of have overconsumption, or they are a foodie. If you're a foodie, great, crack on, you'll be absolutely fine. You can take enjoyment from 1 to 3 bites of things. And then on the other side of things, these people will need to change their identity. They will need to change who they are. They need to stop being a big eater. They need to stop being the person that stuffs themselves at every meal, because that's not going to be conducive to, you know, staying in shape or managing your calories. And even if you wanted to do it just once a week, the amount of sacrifice and restriction you'd have to do for the other 6 days would make your life very miserable. You'd be hungry all the time. Your energy levels will be low just for that one big hit of food. There's probably something deeper lying when it comes to that. Here's a very interesting fact as well, is that when you look at research around taste of things, the food has a bell curve. It peaks and then it troughs, which means that if you've got a bag of Doritos, for example, a bag of Doritos, a large one, it will increase in taste and experience and then will drop off after a certain point. You'll find that tastes don't just get better over the bitefuls. Imagine having a burger, right? Does the first bite taste anything better than the second bite? Yes, probably does. The second bite probably tastes better. The third bite tastes as good as the second bite. But at some point, that last bite, or the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, they all blend into one. You know, the taste has been acquired by your mouth, and there's no extra taste or sensation coming from that burger, especially with things that are repetitive like crisps, nuts. They're in taste are the same, and they get a little bit better after the second, third handful of whatnot, and then after they just become the same sensation. The thing that pulls people in is the crunch and the texture. That's something that's a novel stimulus. It's a dopamine hit in our brain that we continue going back for. So when people say that they're foodies but they're attached to high quantities of food, they're more attached to the physical dopamine of crunching or having large quantities of things, as opposed to the enjoyment of the taste, because we know that it comes in a bell curve where actually you will reach a point of maximal enjoyment from a meal, and then it'll slowly get less because there's no more enjoyment coming from the same foods, and there's no more enjoyment coming from the same tastes. So it's really important to know that when you are trying to, if you are a foodie or you are someone that really enjoys food and you also like high quantities of food, it's like asking yourself, does it get any better, or am I building it up in my brain? Have I really, have I psychologically tricked myself into thinking that every mouthful is amazing? Because when you stop, you eat things slowly, you realize that the taste doesn't actually get better every mouthful. The only thing that may get better or may be constant is that sensation of like crunch, or the taste of spice, or the taste of any type of like different textures. And when that is apparent, then that becomes like the dopamine hit that a lot of people, well, a lot of companies try and test for within their packaging and their products, because that's what keeps people eating them more and more and more, because that's what gets people addicted to that element of eating that same thing over and over again. It's not addiction per se, but it's an addictive nature, chasing that crunch. Being a foodie, or being someone that stuffs themselves full of food and being associated in that environment with every social event being a massive occasion to fill your belly, is going to be a really, really negative for being able to stay in shape for life and also losing fat in the short term. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy food, and it doesn't mean that you can't have the foods that you want. You just have to recognize that bolus doses of 6,000, 7,000, 5,000 calories once a week, once every 14 days, once every 10 days is going to be enough to throw off your fat loss for the whole week ahead. And it's also going to be something that throws off your maintenance, and you'd have to really sacrifice your week to have something like that. And in the long term, if you're looking at 20 years from now, is it worth sacrificing a week's worth of food to have one big hit of all this food? If you've got something emotional or psychological that you're trying to move away from, maybe there's a coping mechanism there. But normal people that want to stay in shape for life can enjoy food in some level of degree, but they don't have to go crazy on it. And that's tip number 2. Now, before I give you tip number 3, I actually want to give you a gift. So the gift is that if you comment below the words eating out, I'm going to give you an eating out guide free from us at Autonomy via Instagram. So all you need to do is comment below in the YouTube, put your Instagram handle, and then we will send you our free eating out guide, which will help you understand how to eat out when you're in a fat loss phase, how to eat out when you're in a maintenance phase, and how to manage it really appropriately, so you don't fall with the common pitfalls of going out for dinner, thinking that you're eating the right foods, the fat loss isn't progressing next week. Is the biggest factor when it comes to our coaching. So we want to give you that guide free. So comment below your Instagram handle and eating out, and we will give you that guide on Instagram. The third eating behavior that you'll need to avoid is the words I can't eat X. Because when you create this environment of I can't eat X, it creates a demand for it. You know, when you want to think about the purple elephant, you think about the purple elephant. If you take away carbs, it's all that you crave, or you take away alcohol, it's all what you think about, or you take away vaping and you're like, oh, I could do with a vape, because you've took something else away and you've completely restricted it. The I can't eat X on a diet thought process is what be stopping you from being consistent as long as possible. In a maintenance phase, in a fat loss phase, you have to understand that the calorie balance, which I'll put here, is equivalent to any foods. There are diets in which people have lost weight eating just potatoes. There's diets where they've just eaten Twinkie bars. Diets in which they've eaten every single type of food in any volume of food sources, but they are in a calorie deficit and they have still lost weight. Now, sure, there are multiple benefits to being more optimal and eating protein and vegetables and fruits and all that type of stuff, but the core basics still stay the same. You can eat what you want. As long as you're in a calorie deficit, you can lose weight. So you saying I can't eat X is a unfounded opinion. And generally the thought process and the attachment to carbs are bad, or I can't eat chocolate, or I can't have alcohol, or I can't have Domino's, or I can't have whatever it is, creates this restriction mindset, which means that over the course of your diet, in terms of the longevity of it, you're going to want that food, and eventually when you crack, you're not going to have it in smaller portions like you could have. You're going to have it in the big dolus and hit the fuck it button and you'll go crazy, but it doesn't need to be that way. The key fundamental is you finding out what you really enjoy and having that more frequently. Most of our clients within Autonomy have chocolate most days within their diet. They have crisps, or they have the niceties that they enjoy on a day-to-day basis, just within a calorie allowance, which means that they're not restricted. They don't feel like they're not on a diet. They don't feel like they have to remove things to get the weight loss that they want to. And when it's more sustainable, when it's something that you can do long-term, where you're not restricting things and having to use discipline and willpower, you're not using any of those things, you're just eating the food you like within a grammage that would be appropriate for your goals right now, you get better results. You stay on diets longer. You don't hit the fuck it button or go all in because you haven't had chocolate in months. And the most important thing is that when you finish the diet, if you've restricted yourself from certain foods and you think certain foods are bad, it's inevitably that you go back to them when you feel bad or you feel like you've hit the fuck it button. Those are the foods that you go to straight away, because once you're bad, all the foods that you deem as bad will be consumed. So you actually want to remove any foods that you feel are bad from your mindset. There's no foods that are bad. There's foods that are more beneficial from a health perspective. There's foods that are beneficial from a taste perspective. And you need to choose throughout the week how much of those you eat. Generally, it's the 80-20 rule. 80% good food, whole foods, fruits, veggies, protein sources, carbohydrates, complex carbs, simple carbs, whatever they are. 20% eating out, 20% chocolate, 20% sweets, 20% snacks, whatever you deem as like kind of a little bit treaty or a little bit nice, but not something you would have all of the time. They want to be in that 80-20 rule. And once you can do that, you'll have no issue with staying in a diet for a long time. And you'll have no issue with maintaining your weight afterwards, because you won't be restricted from everything. And when you're not restricted, you don't feel like you have to have more of it when you're out of the diet or when things are not going too well. It just becomes neutral. And when you create neutrality between any emotion around different food sources, you are able to eat it within any quantity because it's not got a emotional crutch on it. So guys, if you love those 3 tips, there are plenty more. Come and check out my YouTube channel and go through all of the videos. There's plenty of stuff. The one I would definitely recommend was a podcast I did, which is about how to stay in shape for life, and the how to set up an aggressive diet one. That's 2 separate podcasts. I would definitely go and do it. I'd link one of them here at the top. Definitely go and check those out, guys. So if this was useful, comment below, and don't forget, if you want that free eating out guide, just comment below your Instagram handle and eating out, and we'll get that over to you ASAP.